friends, my name is Cecilia Duarte.
And I am Jesús Pacheco.
And today we are here with Ars Lyrica. We are very excited about the program that we have put together for you. We will talk to you about the painter from the medieval times, Giotto di Bondone.
So we've curated a few pieces of music from that period and that place from the Squarcialupi Codex. This is a big document. It is a manuscript from the 15th century that compiles music from many Italian composers of the time. Many early music interpreters like we have gone to this codex for information and for pieces, and there are many recordings and many different works on this kind of music. So this is the soundtrack of our video about Giotto.
So we put together these pieces for you, and you will get to hear them along with the story. The story is based on a book by Paolo Guarnieri. We have owned this book for a few years already. It's a children's book. Giotto di Bondone was born in the 1200s, and since a very early age, it was found that he loved painting and he had a big talent for it. His teacher, Cimabue, was a very famous teacher of the time. He had his studio in Florence, and it is said that he got to meet Giotto when he was about 10 years old. It is uncertain till today about like the actual facts of how they met, but this story takes a very nice guess about how the two of them got to meet and then work together until Giotto became the greatest painter that he was.
Giotto is portrayed as a poor shepherd in Italy, and we really love this story because he follows his dream no matter what the circumstances, and the music that we put along with that tries to portray that desire that he has. It also stops in many places where you will focus on his desire and his dreams becoming true, or when you will learn a specific painting terms and techniques that Cecy is going to explain.
He was actually at the very end of the Byzantine period of art, which was kind of art that was very one-dimensional and pretty much like all the portraits of pictures of people, most of them religious figures, were pictured in a very serious way. Giotto is said to be probably the first painter to make his figures seem alive, and he was actually able to express emotions on the people's faces when he painted them. So he pretty much paved the way for the beginning of the Renaissance period. And something very nice about this story is that because he was right in the middle of these two important moments in art, you can also hear it in the music by listening to Gregorian chant, or you will hear the beginning of polyphony and percussion instruments too.
Yeah, well, we obviously have been the only musicians involved in recording the soundtrack, which means we've had to overlap or overlay, or what is called today multi-track, in all the different pieces. So when you hear 3 voices or 4 voices, that's Cecy recording 4 different lines, and when you hear 3 percussion instruments, that's me recording 3 different percussion instruments. To talk to you a little bit about the instrumentation that I've used, my primary instrument is percussion. So I've used medieval instruments like the tambourine right here. Obviously, in early music we play with natural skins, with animal skins. So here is the tambourine, obviously with its jingles and everything. We have a frame drum right here, which is a very basic medieval instrument, just a frame and the drum head, nothing else. Very simple instrument that you will hear in a couple of pieces. And then an instrument that is actually more versatile than you may think, which is this big medieval drum right here with rope tension to tune it. I play it both with drumsticks and my fingers during the recordings. And then we have different effects. One of them that is very interesting, with try to look for it on the soundtrack, is this little bird. Is this leather pouch with a little whistle at the end of it, and then the sheeps are actually represented by these bells and sleigh bells that I have in my hand. You will also hear two other instruments that we don't have here with us, so we've had to use MIDI triggers or a MIDI keyboard to do it, and those are recorder and hammer dulcimer, which is another percussion instrument that has strings. It's like a table with strings on it that you play with two hammers in your hands. And then, of course, everybody knows the recorder is the grandfather of the flute as we know it today.
So you will hear probably a couple words that you might have never heard before, or they are new to you. One of them is actually Giotto's main medium to express himself, which was a fresco. A fresco is a painting that he made, or people at the time made, on big broad walls, sort of like a mural. But the word fresco is an Italian word that means fresh. So what they did was to apply some kind of plaster on top of the wall so it was wet. And the trick and the difficulty of painting this way is that they actually had to apply the paint before the plaster dried up. So they had to work very fast, make no mistakes, and because they couldn't correct or fix anything. And another word you will hear is the word pigment, or pigmento in Spanish, which were powders that were taken from minerals or flowers or plants. Plants or flowers were dried up and then made into powders, and then they mixed them with egg yolks to actually create the paint and then apply it to the wall. So you might want to try that. A very interesting fact is that a fresco, it's sort of like the very, very early version of a cartoon because he actually made little squares, that told a story. This was a religious story, but, that's probably where the cartoon idea came from.
We've had a lot of fun recording and editing this video. As we've mentioned before, we are musicians. We're not video editors. We've never done, so much. We're not even sound engineers either. And we're doing this from home as these times require. But it's been a beautiful project, a great learning curve for us. And we hope to be doing more of this in the future. But it's definitely been a great learning experience and a really fun and dynamic project to be doing, to be cropping this video and putting together the voices and the soundtrack and see where everything will fit within the music. So we hope that the story has come alive to you and that the message goes through and that you learn about this amazing painter and the music of his time when he was growing up in Italy and changing the art scene of the world for the years to come, just much like the music was changing. And you will hear that as well, that we have different styles of religious and non-religious music. You have the pastorellas, you have duos, you have single melodies, you have Gregorian chant, and you will see all that and we'll hear all that through the video.
To add to your learning experience, this story is told in both English and Spanish as the story moves along. So that's a perfect opportunity for you to practice some of your Spanish. We really hope you enjoy this story and everything we did with it. Please send us your comments and your questions through Ars Lyrica. We really hope to hear from you and what you thought of the story.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Bye.
A Boy Named Giotto. Un niño llamado Giotto. By Paolo Guarnieri. Pictures by Bimba Landmann. Translated to English by Jonathan Galassi. Escrito por Paolo Guarnieri. Ilustraciones de Bimba Landmann. Traducido al español por Cecilia Duarte. Every morning, little Giotto leads his father's flock to the pasture. Cada mañana, el pequeño Giotto guía el rebaño de su padre a la pradera. He ambles distractedly, thinking of a wish he would like to make come true. A wish that, for now, he can't tell anyone. Él camina distraído y sin prisa, pensando en un sueño que quiere hacer realidad. Un sueño que por ahora no le puede contar a nadie. In the pasture, instead of keeping watch over the flock, Giotto spends time sketching. Giotto pasa el tiempo dibujando en la pradera, en lugar de cuidar a su rebaño. He draws pictures of sheep, trees, and birds on everything he finds, on light-colored stones with a piece of charcoal, on dark stones with a piece of chalk, in the sand with a stick. Él dibuja ovejas, árboles y pájaros en todos lados, en rocas claras con un pedazo de carbón, en rocas oscuras con un pedazo de tiza o en la tierra con una rama. They are so beautiful that passers-by often stop to admire them. Son tan hermosos que los caminantes constantemente se detienen a admirarlos. Too bad a gust of wind or a rain shower is all it takes to erase them, says the shepherd boy, sighing. Ah, qué pena que un ventarrón o una lluvia sean suficiente para borrarlos, suspira el niño pastor. He draws till he hears the evening bells tolling in the distance. Giotto dibuja hasta que escucha las campanas del atardecer repicar a la distancia. Then he hurries to gather the sheep and take them back to their pen. Entonces se apura para juntar a las ovejas para llevarlas de vuelta al corral. Master Bondone, his father, waits for him to come home every evening. He doesn't trust Giotto. El señor Bondone, su padre, espera su llegada todas las noches. Él no confía en Giotto. Always with his head in the clouds, he says of his boy as he counts the sheep. Siempre con la mente en las nubes, dice de su hijo mientras cuenta las ovejas. This evening, in fact, he is angry. One is missing. It would have to be tonight when I can't go find it, he scolds. En esta ocasión, de hecho, él está enojado. Falta una, y tenía que ser hoy que no puedo ir a buscarla, dijo muy enfadado. There's a great feast in town, but you are not coming. You're staying home. Hay una celebración en el pueblo, pero tú no vendrás. Te quedarás en casa. Giotto is sad, not because of his punishment, but because he's lost a lamb. How will it survive the night, he worries. Giotto está triste, no por su castigo, sino porque perdió una de las ovejas, y le preocupa el cómo sobrevivirá la noche. He would love to draw it on the bare wall of his room with a piece of chalk, but his father would only get angry again. Le encantaría dibujar la oveja en la pared de su cuarto con un pedazo de tiza, pero su padre solo se enojaría más. All you do is scribble, he'd say, as he has done so many times. Todo lo que haces es garabatear, le diría, tal como lo ha hecho ya tantas veces. Suddenly, Giotto hears voices and footsteps in the street. De repente, Giotto escucha voces y pasos en la calle. Curious, Giotto looks out. He sees his father in the procession. Curioso, Giotto mira por la ventana y ve a su padre en la procesión. He's about to pull back inside when he stops as if enchanted. The setting sun is reflected in the gold of a beautiful painting being carried through the streets. Giotto está a punto de volver a su cuarto cuando se paraliza como si estuviera encantado. El sol del atardecer se refleja en el oro de una hermosa pintura que cargan en la calle. Who made it? And how? He asks in amazement. ¿Quién la hizo? ¿Y cómo? Pregunta asombrado. So strong is his curiosity and his wonder that Giotto disobeys his father. He leaves the house, slips in among the crowd, and enters the great church along with them. Tan grande es su curiosidad y su asombro que Giotto desobedece a su padre. Sale de su casa, se mete entre la muchedumbre y entra en la iglesia junto con ellos. The painter of the Madonna with Child is called Cimabue, he hears someone say. El pintor de la Virgen y el Niño se llama Cimabue, Giotto escucha decir. Giotto would like to ask him where he found the colors to paint his picture, and to confide in him that he, too, would like to be a painter when he grows up. A Giotto le gustaría preguntarle en dónde encontró los colores para pintar esta obra, y además contarle que también a él le gustaría ser un pintor cuando sea grande. Certainly a painter would understand me, he thinks, but he doesn't dare approach Cimabue. De seguro un pintor me entendería, piensa el niño, pero no se atreve a acercarse a Cimabue. Yet he dares to follow him as he is leaving, pero se atreve a seguirlo mientras se va. And from a window, he peers into the artist's workshop. Señor Cimabue, he calls. Y desde una ventana se asoma al estudio del pintor. Señor Cimabue, le llama. The painter turns. Come in. Don't be afraid, he tells the boy. El pintor voltea. Pasa, no tengas miedo, le dice al niño. Giotto isn't afraid. I am only a shepherd, but I'd like... Giotto no tiene miedo. Solo soy un pastor, pero me gustaría... The painter listens. He listens as the boy tells him his greatest wish. El pintor lo escucha mientras el niño le revela su deseo más grande. And then he tells him a secret too. Y después también le cuenta un secreto. To paint the way you want, you need colored powders. They are called pigments, and they come from minerals and flowers. Para pintar como tú quieres, necesitas polvos de colores llamados pigmentos que se sacan de minerales y de las flores. Now it's Giotto's turn to listen. He does so with such fascination that the painter hands him some red powder. Ahora Giotto escucha con tal fascinación que el pintor le da un poco de polvo rojo. Grind this in a mortar with a few drops of water, he tells him. Next, take these eggs and beat the yolks thoroughly in another mortar. Now mix them with the colored paste. Muele esto en un mortero con unas gotas de agua, le dice. Ahora toma estos huevos y revuelve las yemas en otro mortero. Ahora mézclalos con la pasta roja. Then, on a wood panel covered with gesso, the painter draws a figure and helps the boy apply the paint. Luego, en un panel de madera recubierto con yeso, el pintor traza una figura y le ayuda al niño a aplicar la pintura. Neither rain nor wind will ever erase this picture, thinks the shepherd. No hay lluvia ni viento que pueda borrar esta pintura, piensa el pastor. It doesn't seem real when the painter gives him some of his colored powders and promises, "Tomorrow I will come to see your drawings on the stones." Todo parece un sueño cuando el pintor le da alguno de sus polvos de colores y le promete, "Mañana iré a ver tus pinturas en las piedras." What does seem real to Giotto is the dream he dreams that night. With his paints, he gives life to the old stones of houses and palaces. Lo que sí parece real es el sueño que Giotto tiene esa noche. Con sus pinturas le da vida a las viejas rocas de las casas y palacios. He makes pictures on broad walls and everyone exclaims, "What a marvelous painter this boy is! Look, his figures seem alive." El niño pinta en muros enteros y todos exclaman, "¡Oh! Este niño es un gran pintor. Miren, sus figuras parecen tener vida." It's such a long, intense dream that in the morning his father has to come and wake him up. Fue un sueño tan largo e intenso que a la mañana siguiente su padre tuvo que venir a despertarlo. "Up! Get up!" he says, shaking him. "It's time to take the flock to the pasture and find the lamb you lost." "Arriba, levántate", le dice mientras lo sacude. "Es hora de llevar el rebaño a la pradera y encontrar la oveja que perdiste." Giotto starts walking. He carries a sack on his back with some of the colored powders inside. Giotto sale caminando llevando sobre su hombro un saco con polvos de colores dentro. All day he paints on rocks and stones. Todo el día pinta en rocas y en piedras. He paints with such concentration that he forgets to look for the lost lamb. He forgets to watch over the flock. He doesn't hear the bells in the distance ringing the hours. Pinta con tal concentración que se olvida de buscar a la oveja perdida. Se olvida de cuidar el rebaño y tampoco escucha las lejanas campanadas marcando las horas. It starts to get dark. Giotto, as if rousing himself from a waking dream, realizes he is late. Ya empieza a oscurecer. Como despertando de un sueño, Giotto se da cuenta que se le ha hecho tarde. Tonight father will be angry again, he thinks. Mi padre estará furioso otra vez, piensa. He's about to collect the sheep when he hears footsteps on the path and his father's voice calling him. Cuando está a punto de juntar a sus ovejas, Giotto escucha pasos en el camino y la voz de su padre llamándolo. Giotto is afraid of being scolded and hides. Giotto tiene miedo de recibir más regaños y se esconde. But then he hears more steps. Another voice. Greetings. And his father exclaims, "It's incredible! Here's the lamb my boy lost yesterday, and it seems to recognize its mother in your painting on this rock." Entonces escucha más pasos, otra voz, un saludo, y a su padre exclamando, "Esto es increíble. Esta es la oveja que mi hijo perdió ayer y que ha reconocido a su madre en la pintura que hiciste en esta roca." "I'm afraid it's not mine," Cimabue corrects him. "No painter I know has ever succeeded in making a creature look so alive," he marvels. "Me temo que la pintura no es mía," aclara Cimabue. "Ningún pintor que yo haya conocido ha podido lograr que una criatura se vea con tanta vida", dice maravillado. "But I recognize the pains I gave to a shepherd boy yesterday. If he is your son, I'd like to speak to you about him. Pero reconozco las pinturas que ayer le di a un pastorcito. Si él es tu hijo, me gustaría hablar contigo de él. The painter and Master Bondone talk for a long time about young Giotto, and they continue their discussion that evening at Master Bondone's home. El pintor y el señor Bondone hablaron de Giotto por largo tiempo y continuaron su conversación esa noche en la casa del señor Bondone. Your son's drawings are anything but scribbles, Cimabue tells Giotto's parents. I beg you, let him come to my study in my workshop in Florence. Las pinturas de Giotto no son garabatos, Cimabue les dice. Les ruego que lo dejen venir a estudiar conmigo en Florencia. Oh, but he's still so young, his mother says anxiously. Pero aún es un niño, su madre dice con preocupación. And I need him to watch over the sheep, his father adds. Y yo necesito que me ayude a cuidar de las ovejas, añade su padre. And I say I will make him into a great painter, Cimabue tells them with conviction. Y yo les digo que lo convertiré en un gran pintor, Cimabue afirma. All right, Master Bondone agrees at last, but his mother has a point. He is only 8. I'll send him to you when he's a little older. Muy bien, el señor Bondone accede finalmente, pero su madre tiene razón. El niño solo tiene 8 años. Lo mandaré contigo cuando sea más grande. 7 years pass, and Giotto's father keeps his promise. And so, one morning, Giotto leaves his life as a shepherd boy behind. Después de 7 años, el padre de Giotto cumple su promesa. Así, una mañana, Giotto deja su vida como pastor en el pasado. In the workshop in Florence, he quickly learns the secrets of his calling, surpassing all his fellow students in skill. En el estudio en Florencia, Giotto aprende rápidamente los secretos de su vocación, superando a sus compañeros en habilidad. Even though he is younger, I'll choose him as my assistant for my new fresco, Cimabue decides one day. Un día, Cimabue toma una decisión. Aunque sea muy joven, lo nombraré mi asistente para hacer mi nuevo fresco. It's not easy to paint a fresco, and the two have to work with great speed. No es fácil pintar un fresco, y los dos deben trabajar con rapidez. They need to cover the wall with a mixture of lime and very fine sand, then draw figures and apply the paint before the mixture dries. Deben cubrir la pared con una mezcla de limón y arena muy fina. Luego, hacer el dibujo y aplicar la pintura antes de que la mezcla se seque. Nothing can be erased or retouched, but Giotto works with such a sure hand that Cimabue, amazed, lets him finish the picture by himself. Nada se puede borrar o retocar, pero Giotto trabaja con tal mano firme que el maravillado Cimabue lo deja terminar el fresco por sí solo. The pupil has outdone the master, he thinks. El alumno ha superado al maestro. And he is not surprised when it's his youngest pupil who is called upon to paint the frescoes in the great church dedicated to Saint Francis, the poor friar who could talk with the wolves and the birds. Cimabue no se sorprende cuando su alumno más joven es seleccionado para pintar los frescos de la gran iglesia dedicada a San Francisco de Asís, el fraile que podía hablar con lobos y con aves. Giotto sets out for Assisi. He carries a sack on his shoulder containing a great many colored powders. Giotto se va a Asís, cargando sobre su hombro un saco que lleva muchos polvos de colores. The moment has come for him to paint frescoes that not even time will erase. Ha llegado el momento para Giotto de pintar frescos que ni siquiera el paso del tiempo podrá borrar. The end. El fin.